Good morning to you. This morning's class is class basic setup number 4, dashboard setup. And during the next hour or so, we're going to learn how to build dashboard views for both the desktop application as well as the web portal. And we're going to be focused on the desktop application. All of the build will be done through your desktop version. So in my case here, I'm going to log on with my administrative privileges, and you'll need to do the same when it comes time to build your dashboard profiles. And so we're going to start building desktop dashboards first. Then we're going to take a look at web dashboards later. And a desktop dashboard is really nothing more than a collection of schedule views, schedule-related content, and it is a configuration designed for administrators. And in other words, we're not going to allow basic users or even supervisory level people to create their own dashboards. We as administrators will put together the various types of content that we feel everyone is going to need, and we're going to allow everyone access to some or all of that content. Now, what you're looking at here on my desktop is a very basic dashboard view, and it is just called Police Department Schedule. And if I click on the drop-down menu, you'll notice that I have an option to select additional profiles if I choose to create more. In other words, you might have a profile that's used for one group or department and a completely different profile for another group or department. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. So using my generic police department schedule profile, at the very bottom, you're going to notice that there's several pages that make up that profile. These pages are also referred to as tabs when you start creating your own from scratch. And your tabs can be renamed. So as I click on the weekly schedule, and monthly calendar by employee, these are names that I have given to each of these tabs. Now, within each tab of your profile, you're going to be able to add content in a number of different configurations. You'll have daily, weekly, and monthly schedule views, of course, but you'll also have content for training activity, time off activity, extra duty activity. And so just taking a look at through my sample profile, we'll just take a look at some of the most commonly used windows or dashboard windows you might end up using for your own department. So of course I have my daily schedule first, and within the daily schedule view I have my shifts for patrol days and nights, and my detective bureau and administration schedules are here as well. Below, I have a minimum staffing grid, which is something you're going to learn how to build in class number 6. And this just tracks what my minimum staffing requirements are for each hour of the day and indicates where I'm having a staffing problem. So on my night shift here, for instance, it's displayed in red because it's operating below minimums. And at the very bottom, it's telling me the skill set of who I am missing and for the exact hours. And that particular shortage spills over onto the 8th. So there we go, seeing that night shift, which ends at 0600, displaying a shortage of 1 person needed for that desk position. Let's go back to today's schedule, and let's move on to the other tab, which is our weekly schedule. And so you'll notice here I have everyone organized by their groups or squads. And over on the right, it's displaying the weekly schedule. And you'll notice that unlike the daily schedule, the weekly is just showing one type of content. So unlike the daily schedule where I have multiple blocks representing my shifts and more content found at the bottom, because of the way the weekly schedule is formatted, I have that on its own tab or page. And you may choose to do the same thing. Let's click on the monthly schedule. Once again, we're seeing everyone listed by group or squad and along with their schedules for the month. Next up, we have a monthly calendar, and this is employee-based. So we select who we want to view the schedule for, and once we click on Select and Close, it will load up that schedule. And it will also show time off and overtime activity on these views. We have a yearly schedule, which is another employee-based view. Next up, our daily roster. So our daily roster is just showing you who is scheduled to work for the current day. And you'll be able to determine which groups or squads you want included in that daily roster when it's time to create your own. Under Daily Details, this allows you just a brief overview of everything that's going on in the department, who has time off, who is working overtime, who is on a switch, anyone who is working outside of their standard work times. You'll have a list of off-duty personnel, anyone who is working an extra duty job, anyone who is on a training assignment, and anyone who has signed up or made themselves available for any overtime that may come up last minute. Now, you may not necessarily be using every feature within this window. You may not be using extra duty. You may not be using our training module. However, if you're using things like switches and substitutions, what you can do is you can just choose to use that one window instead of all of the others that you might not need. Next up, I have a tab here for open shifts. So if you plan on utilizing open shifts to fill staffing shortages, you may want to create a window where that activity is going to be displayed. And that activity can show what open shifts have been created, who has signed up for open shifts, next up, we have a tab titled Training, and this is just showing training assignments. And you can use this tab or a tab like it to display training activity for the current day, or you can have it display training activity for a specified period of time. Maybe you want to know who's in the training class for the next 2 weeks. That's something that you'll be able to configure on your own dashboard profiles. We have a tab here for extra duty assignments, very similar to open shifts. You can choose to create tabs or pages where we can see what extra duty job assignments are scheduled for today or for a specified period of time. And you can also see who has signed up for those extra duty details. I have another tab here that I call Time Off / Overtime, and this is just showing time off and overtime activity. And you may choose to use this as just a central area where administrators or supervisors can view what time off is being taken today, or you can specify a period of time. So if I want to know who has time off scheduled for the next 30 days, that's certainly something that you can do with your dashboards. Now again, you may not choose to use all of the content that I have displayed on my dashboards. However, we're just going to take a look at how to create a very simple dashboard profile. And so to do that, we're going to click on the Edit Dashboard at the very top of our screen. And you'll notice this main screen designer appears, and in my case, because I already have an existing dashboard profile called Police Department Schedule, what you're seeing here is you're seeing that profile in the editor mode. It's going to allow me to make changes to my existing profile and any tab contained within each one. But we're going to create one from scratch, and so on our main screen designer, we're going to select Add Profile, which for you might be the only option you have. So if you don't have any dashboard profiles saved in your system, you may not see nearly as many buttons as I'm seeing here. You might just have the option to add a profile. Let's click on Add Profile, and you'll be asked to enter a name for the new profile, and that name that you enter is the one that will be displayed at the very top. So since I already have one called Police Department Schedule, I'll just call this one Schedule. And after you enter the name, just click on the OK button. And you'll see that you're given a blank screen. There's only one tab titled Default Tab. You'll see the name of the profile you just created. And, you know, my existing one is still in there. Okay. But for now, we're going to just concern ourselves with building one from scratch. So after you have your profile loaded up and ready for editing, you'll notice that you have a lot more options on the main screen designer. So whereas before you only had Add Profile, the moment you enter the name, you now have additional buttons. These buttons are going to be used to add additional tabs to your profile. It will be used to rename the tabs if necessary, or to reorder them in a particular way. And there's other functions like copying a profile. Maybe you want to create another one that's very similar, but you might make slight modifications because that profile might be used by a different group or department. So you'll have the option to copy profiles if necessary. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build my daily schedule tab. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to rename default tab to something like daily schedule. So while I'm in that tab, the only one that's in the profile, I am going to Edit tab name. I'm going to call that my daily schedule. And if I have a lot of shifts that I need to put on my daily schedules, I may break them up into maybe daily schedule page 1, daily schedule page 2. So I'll start with daily schedule page 1. We'll click on the OK button. The tab name has been changed, and now we can start adding content to the screen. Now, to see the type of content that you may want to choose from, you can view just a catalog. Click on the Open Catalog button on the main screen designer. And you're going to see a list of about 35 or so active tile windows. That's what we call them. And every active tile window is showing you a different type of scheduling related information. So we have a daily details tile, which we saw. This was one that I used in one of my profile tabs. I have one for extra duty assignments. We saw that on one of those as well. Okay. And so as you select an active tile, it's going to show you a preview of what that tile window would look like if you placed it somewhere on your dashboard. Over on the right are the settings or the properties that you can apply to that particular type of tile. Now each one is going to have its own sets of options, so it will vary based on the type of content you're choosing from, and you'll see that as I just click through a couple of those. That property window doesn't look quite the same for each one. But this catalog that we're looking at allows you to preview what's available. It allows you to set the properties for that tile, such as, do you want to use a timer to auto-refresh that window? Do you want to give that tile a different title than just maybe the shift name that might be used? Next, we select the shift. Because this is a daily schedule tile, it needs to know what shift we want to populate into that window. And as we scroll down, you have additional settings. Do you want the schedule view to just show today's date? Well, then leave days future and days past set to 0. If you want this to show yesterday's schedule, enter a 1, click on the Apply button, and you'll see that this window is showing you the schedule for November 6th. I'll leave it set to 0. Okay. And when you click on the Apply button, it shows you a preview. Next, do you want the daily schedule to show any denied time off? With regards to partial time off, do you want the system to show you the actual hours that someone is working or the hours that they're taking time off? If you're setting minimum staffing rules, if and when you set those up, you can tie your schedule view to be linked to your minimum staffing rules. And what that's going to do for you is it will turn the screen red when that shift is operating below minimums. Below that, you can choose to show car, radio, AEDs, and any other job assignments that you may have created. Now again, this is just a catalog. I would definitely recommend going through some of these and figuring out which ones you may want to include on the dashboard profiles. For now, Let's exit out of the catalog. And now we're actually going to add content to the page, finally. Now you noticed for my daily schedule, in my test one here, I had my screen divided up into individual blocks for each shift. We're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to use these buttons to create horizontal splits or vertical splits. Now, as you do that, each box then has its own button so that you can create splits to fit the amount of content you want on one page. Now I'm going to delete some of the extra boxes. I don't think we need as many. But I have it split up into 4, so on the top left of each one, you're going to see a green button. When you click on the green button, that's going to bring up the tile catalog. This is a little different from the catalog I showed you before. This allows you not only to preview what an active tile will look like, but it actually allows you to start placing it onto the profile itself. So let's click on the daily schedule. Over on the far right, I'm going to use the timer, and that just means that as people start requesting time off or putting overtime onto the schedule, we want the screen to auto-refresh and always show the most up-to-date scheduling changes on that particular shift. I'm going to choose my day shift. I'm going to scroll down, and I want to display any denied time off activity. If anyone takes a partial day off, I want to see what the actual off times are. If I'm tracking minimum staffing requirements, I want to click on Validate Shift and choose my validation shift from the drop-down menu. Now, if you have not completed the 6th online class, which is minimum staffing, you're not going to be able to select that just yet, but you can still build your profiles and then come back and turn that on when you've configured your minimum staffing requirements. You're going to select what job assignments you want included on the daily schedule. And at the very top, you can click on the Apply button to preview the content. And you can click on Apply and Use to actually place that content onto the dashboard. Now, you can't see it yet. You may have to give it just a couple of seconds for it to refresh, but you will be able to see the content through that purplish shade there. Over on the right, we're going to click on the green button again. We're going to select the daily schedule, and we're basically repeating the same process, just choosing a different shift so that little by little we are building our daily schedule. Okay, I'll put records in there. Records doesn't have minimum staffing requirements, so I'll leave that unmarked. They don't have car or radio assignments, so we'll leave those unmarked. They just don't apply. And on the last block that I have, I may choose to use that block for my minimum staffing requirements. So from my list, I'm going to look for hourly validation, and that might look familiar. That was in my example that we did before. Over on the right, you can choose to set the timer. So again, it's auto-refreshing as new schedule changes are being made. You're going to select which validation shift applies to this grid. So you might have one for patrol, you might have one for dispatch. So if you have multiples, just select which one you want included for that particular window and click Apply and Use. Okay. So now that I'm done with my daily schedule, let's click on the Save button on the main screen designer, and let's exit out of the edit mode. All right, so there's our very simple, straightforward daily schedule. Now you'll notice I have a lot of room here on some of these shifts. So let's go back into the edit mode. Let's click on Edit Dashboard. And let's try to take back some of that space. Up top, you're going to notice that you have additional buttons we didn't have there before. And at the very top, you have the Create Horizontal Split and Create Vertical Split. Okay. If you click on either one of these, it's going to clear out whatever you have in that window, and it's going to give you a brand new horizontal split down the middle. The same for vertical. It's going to wipe everything out and create a brand new split. And in other words, you're saying, I don't want this content. I want to create 2 more pieces of content, and I want to split the screen in a certain way. The bottom ones allow you to split the screen but keep the content. And if you take a look at the one that I'm pointing at right now, this is a horizontal split with the white portion at the bottom and the yellow portion at the top. What that means is if I click on this button, it will move the existing content to the top of the screen. So that's what the yellow is. And it's going to create a brand new empty window just below it. Now let's take a look at records here. There isn't that many people working in records. It might not be any more than 2 or 3 people. So it doesn't make sense to dedicate so much space to it. So let's click and drag that over into the empty area. Now I have a brand new space here that I can repurpose for other things. I can click on the green button to bring up my catalog. And maybe I want to see school assignments for today. Over on the right, I'll set the timer. Under days past, days future, if I leave that set to 0, that means it's just going to show me the current day's training schedule. Or I can change it to show me the next 30 days worth of training activity. For now, I'll leave it set to 0, and I'll click on Apply and Use. Let's save our changes on that main screen designer and exit out of the edit mode. So as soon as the screen has a chance to refresh, or if you choose to force it to refresh, this is what your dashboard looks like now. Let's go back into the editor mode. And aside from just splitting the screens, you can also choose to just resize them manually. So here again for records, I may not have more than 2 people working on that shift, but I may have a lot more on my day shift above it. So I can manually move the windows around for the best fit possible. Okay. At this time, just before we add in just a couple of other additional pages, Are there any questions on how to create a profile, how to look for active tile content, or how to resize the screens that we looked at?
Yeah, if you resize one of those screens, will it populate that across every, for example, say my day shift supervisor, I've got a patrol supervisor tab, I've resized that record screen. Will they have to resize that themselves, or does that automatically stay that resized size?
That's a great question. So you're actually making the change to the profile itself. So anyone that has access to it or is working off of it will be affected. So that's why we don't usually allow supervisors to make modifications to their dashboards, because it's going to, it could have a global effect on everyone else who's using the system. But yeah, it's you just might want to, not be careful, but just be mindful that any changes that you're making are going to affect a wide group of people.
Okay, thank you, sir. I've got no other questions.
Okay. Now, have you guys worked on our legacy system? Am I right?
Yes. In fact, we still have the legacy system.
So you guys are in the process of migrating. So, as you know, with the legacy system, you had a fixed sort of a fixed schedule view. You had daily, weekly, and monthly tabs. I would recommend that try to stick close to what you had before, at least for now, right? Because you can really mimic what you had in the legacy system, and then you can expand on that, as your comfort level grows with a new version.
Okay.
And in fact, if you've gone through our migration classes, you may notice that under the migration aid, there's a little shortcut here for you where you can click on Tile Profile. You can choose the legacy desktop, and you can give it a name for the new program for Schedule App.
Okay.
And it will ask you, okay, what content do you want to bring over from the legacy shift view? And you might say all of it. So you can click on the preview button, and it will copy all of your daily schedules over, and it'll give you tabs for the weekly and the monthly view that you can then configure. So it's a nice little shortcut so that you don't necessarily have to create the profiles from scratch. And I'll just save that so you can see what it looks like. After it saves it, and I switch over to the new daily schedule, there it is. This should look a lot like what you had in your desktop on the legacy system.
Right. All right, here's a question for you. One of the problems that we've got here is passing information between shifts. Is there a tool within a schedule app that we can, put notes for the next shift, or have kind of like a daily log of activity that we need to alert other officers to?
Yes, absolutely. So going back to the schedule, the one that I was creating, if I click on Edit Dashboard, I can maybe repurpose some of this area here. So I will create a split, and in this window, we'll click on the green button to bring up the catalog, and let's look at today's notes. Select it, click on Apply and Use, and then Save. And so anyone with access to the desktop application can use this to add notes. So anyone who logs onto the program is going to be able to see these.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So let's click on Edit Dashboard again. We're going to add just for one or two more tabs. Let's click on Add Tab. It's going to ask us to give it a name. I'll call this my weekly schedule. And you notice it creates a brand new tab at the bottom with a completely empty screen. And at the very top, I'm going to use the green button to look for my weekly schedule, which should be at the bottom of the list. Over to the right, we certainly want to use the timer. But for this one, we're going to select which groups we want included on that weekly schedule. And I'll even resize this window so you can get an idea of what my choices are. Now, I can choose to view all groups. I can then choose to sort by group, and then I can choose which day of the week I want it to start on. Let's click on Apply just to see a preview. Now, as this is loading up, just a brief reference back to your legacy system. Whenever you entered the weekly or the monthly schedule, you had to choose which groups you wanted to see.
Right.
Whereas here, when you build the tile or the tab, you are actually predefining those. So when I choose to commit that onto my tab and I save it, I no longer have to choose which groups. It's just displaying all or whatever you've chosen to display for your supervisors.
How did you get it to show, like, for example, where it says administration and then, detective bureau, and break it up that way?
So these are your squad or group assignments. So in the legacy system, these would be referred to as your squads. So they should already be broken up to some degree. So when you're building these dashboard views, you're going to notice that some of them are shift-based, some of them are employee-based, some of them are group or squad-based, and that's exactly what this one is.
Okay, so you can sort that then by group, correct?
That is correct. At the bottom, you can say, well, I want it shown just in name order, which is probably messy, or you can select group. And, this is going to be alphabetical, so you're not going to be able to change the order. Now, you may choose to have a completely different dashboard profile for administration versus, let's say, patrol. So if you're building a profile that's going to be used primarily by supervisors, you might say, well, they don't need to see the admin weekly schedule on this page. They could go elsewhere for that type of information.
Right.
We'll go ahead and move it. And, you'll notice with that weekly schedule that if I save it and exit out, it takes up the whole screen. So we would recommend, if you're going to include a weekly schedule page like this one, that you really don't split the screen up too much, because you kind of need the whole screen to really use this one. If I edit dashboard again and add a brand new tab, we can put in our monthly schedule. Add, there's one here called monthly schedule grid. Also group-based. And we saw an example of this one on my profile when we started things off this morning.
Okay.
I'll use the timer on that one, and I'll click Apply and Use. All right, so at least we have some content in here. Again, it's really just a matter of figuring out what type of additional content you might need on your dashboard. Since you're a legacy user, I would even go so far as to just transfer over your legacy desktop into Schedule app. That's going to save you some time right there. Now, if we take a look at the one that I brought over, the new daily schedule, the weekly and the monthly schedule tabs still have to be built, because in your older system, you had to select each group individually. You're not doing that anymore. So you just have to remember that if you migrate over your old legacy dashboard, just click on Edit Dashboard up top, and instead of adding, you're going to edit. See, it already knows there's a weekly schedule window. It just doesn't know which groups or squads you want it to include in it. So I'll just select all, and I'll switch over to group, and maybe I might want my weekly schedule to begin on Mondays. When I click on Apply and Use, I just have to save and exit in order to see the content.
Okay.
Under the blotter, here's one that you always had in the legacy desktop. Edit the dashboard, click on the edit button below the green one, and select which groups you want included and which types of assignments you want displayed on your blotter. Okay. And you're done. Now, I've been saving in between pages, but you can go through each one and modify any individual page, do whatever it is you need to do, and when you're done, click on Save and then Exit. So here's my blotter.
Okay.
Now, the other desktop or the other dashboards that we can create are web dashboards. Now, to do that, we're going to move over to the Administration drop-down menu. We're going to select Web Dashboard from the Company Center. And you should already see your web dashboard. So these should automatically carry over from your legacy desktop. Okay. Now, you can't configure the web dashboards nearly as much as you can on the desktop application. The only thing you can do is order the shifts into those 6 blocks. So really, your transition from legacy to schedule app, as far as the web is concerned, really hasn't changed a whole lot. Okay. If, however, you wanted to create a brand new web dashboard, click on the New button up top, enter the name for the scheme as it's referred to here, and when you click on the OK button, you have up to 6 blocks, and you can add multiple pages. So on the top left, I might want to put my day shift. In the middle, my night shift. Next, maybe my training. On the bottom left, maybe records, admin, and my detective bureau. Now, if you have more pages, you can add a page and continue adding more content. On-call schedules. I don't use too much else here, but you can have as many pages as you would like, and when you're done, click on the Save button. So just keeping in mind that the web dashboards are just for web portal users. So most of our web portal users are non-supervisory members of the department. They don't need to see nearly as much content as someone on the desktop version. Luckily for you guys who are migrating over from the legacy system, you're not going to have to build too much from scratch as opposed to someone who is, brand new and having to create, all of these dashboard views from scratch. It's really their only choice.
Okay.
Now, that's pretty much all we have for building the dashboards. Now, I did want to mention that when you signed up for the class, there was a document that you should have been able to download called Basic Setup for Guide. It's a PDF document. That document outlines everything that we covered. So I would recommend looking at that. It has step-by-step instructions on how to build the dashboards. Pretty much everything that we covered this morning is included in that guide. This session is also recorded, so about an hour after it's done, you'll receive a recording of that in case you need to cover anything again at a later time. In that same email, you're going to have the option to download the document again.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, is there just a user's manual? I know for POS there was a general user's manual. Is there one that exists for Schedule App?
I don't believe it's out yet. It's in somewhat of a rough draft. But I think if you were to contact Jen at our customer service, yeah, she might be able to get you like an early draft of that.
Okay.
And in fact, I can even send her. I have her send you some links to some of the documents that we have so far. I think she might have already like a form-based email with a lot of that stuff available.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Sure. Any questions on creating dashboards?
None whatsoever.
Okay.
Fairly straightforward.
Yeah, it's really not too bad. It's really interesting sort of what you can do to really kind of customize it to your needs. But I would say for now, keep it as basic as possible. And then, of course, you can always expand on that as you go.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Appreciate it, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you signing up for the class.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.